Let me tell you a little anecdote. A few days ago, a lady said to me in Los Angeles, my husband died a year ago, and he shared with me a great lesson. On his deathbed, he said to me, come close. I want to tell you something. Listen very carefully. I can only say this once. I don't have much strength left. She said, I'm listening, darling. What is it? He said, remember this always. Each morning, the moment you take your head off the pillow, you have all you need.
If we look at the mind as an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is what's above the surface, that's the conscious mind, that's the mind of choice, that's the action mind. What's below the surface, and that's most of the iceberg, right? That's the subconscious mind, like a submarine. You don't know it's there, but it's there, unless it surfaces.
Well, most of us say we want X. I want a new car. I want a fancy house. I want inner peace. I want a loving relationship. And then we start to go out into our world and we say, I will earn the right. And you start working away at life. And you're using your mind a lot and you're working at everything, and things get in the way. Life seems to throw curves at you.
You can think of everyone in this world that you know as dragging a whole bunch of suitcases behind them. The emotion code is a way to cut loose all those suitcases, all those steamer trunks, all that baggage that you've been carrying around all your life. The end result of that is that you become light and you become able to manifest into the world what you're supposed to be able to manifest. Imagine living in a world where everyone is actually manifesting from their heart into the world their perfect creation that is inside each of them. That's where we're going.
I am absolutely convinced that it is our trapped emotions and traumas and anxieties and unprocessed life experiences that we hold in our nervous system are the source of everything that ails us.
One of the most profound things in my life has been able to share ancient wisdom that I came across just as a young guy traveling around the world and fascinated by communities that pretty much live off the grid, and they're long-lived, they're healthy, they're happy. And it always bothered me, how can they be that way without hospitals and doctors and miracle supplements and pills and capsules? They don't have any of that.
What I've come to understand is at the core of every symptom, every stress, every dis-ease pattern that we experience, whether it be physical, whether it be emotional, are emotions, memories that are buried in our subconscious mind. And when these are triggered, our body reacts. It's called a maladaptive stress reaction. And what it means is that we're not able to adapt in the present moment, here and now. And what happens is our body reacts as if something from the past is going on right now.
Now, when we react to conditions in our life, there is an emotional component that begins to create chemistry in our bodies because the body is interpreting an emergency situation. Now, all organisms in nature are designed for short-term stress. Gazelle gets chased by a lion, 15 minutes later it goes back to grazing and everything returns back to balance. Human beings are a little different. We can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. We can think about some past bitter memory that's tattooed in the recesses of our gray matter, and like magic, it comes to life, and in that moment, it's real.
Whenever you see something, because the brain works in pictures, there's a response to that image of the sensory impact. If you hear a sound that sounds dangerous, your body, your brain will create an emotional molecule to get you to respond to that.
And so the mind does its work very, very quickly. And based on the data that it is receiving, it forms a truth about the present memory or experience. Based on that truth, it comes up with a thought that tells the self about that memory or experience. And based on that thought, we generate what we believe is the appropriate emotion to match that thought.
And as a result, our heart rate increases, our immune system suppresses, we become more anxious because we're not in our fullest potential in the moment. The core of every symptom, stress, and disease are emotions and memories, traumatic perceptions that are buried in our subconscious mind.
Like you handle every other witness. You grab him by the balls. You take control of the situation. Otherwise, you and I are not working together ever again. Do you understand that? I don't need you pushing me. Whoa! No, listen. No, listen to me. You go back there, you take...
First of all, to understand how the emotion code works, you have to understand that the human body is really nothing but energy. If you look at your hand, for example, that hand looks pretty solid. But if you were to magnify that hand 1,000,000 times, you'd be looking face to face with a single individual atom. And if you could look into that atom, you'd see there's really nothing in there but empty space and infinitesimally tiny energies zipping around at the speed of light. And that's really what we are. We're beings of pure energy. We are composed of all these countless energies, tiny energies, that are all flying in this close formation, giving us this experience that we're having in this world.
Emotion means energy movement. And it's our thoughts that create our emotions. It's our emotions that create our behaviors.
Well, when we feel an emotion strongly enough, what we're really feeling is a vibrational energy. Every emotion has its own specific vibrational frequency. Anger is a different emotional energy, a different frequency, a different vibration than frustration, and that's different than sadness, and they're all different. But when you're feeling an intense emotion, your whole being can take on this vibration, and it's during those times that sometimes the energy of that emotion that you're feeling is too powerful, and that energy can become trapped and stuck in the body. And a trapped emotion, we have found, is literally a ball of energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of a cantaloupe. And these will lodge anywhere in the body and disrupt the normal energy field of the body. And because that's all the body really is an energy field, when you distort that energy field, you eventually start to have problems, because what you're really doing is you're distorting the tissues of the body themselves. And if you distort tissue and you irritate tissue long enough, that tissue starts to have problems, and it can go through those changes that we call cancer.
So to me, one of the most fascinating things of the ancient Suan-Wet, the lady scholastic healers of ancient Egypt, was they knew there was only one disease, not 20, 26, 30, 36,000 diseases like we're taught today amongst the masses. They knew there was one, and it was chaos at the level of the Neters. 600 BC, Democritus and others in the Greco-Roman period called that word the atomos. Today we know it as atoms. The only disease that exists in the human experience is chaos at the atomic level, which leads to chaos at the molecular level, which leads to chaos at the cellular level. And when enough cells are in chaos, you feel it as a sign or a signal of a chaos or an offense in the body. That's what the word symptom means, a sign or a signal of a chaos.
It's been proven that every cell in your body works on a vibration, an energy field. The physical body is grown within an energy field that resonates at a particular vibration. Through stress, that vibration becomes weaker, causing the physical element to be under pressure.
So the removal of stress creates health. I think it's the AMA says 80% of all health issues are stress related.
If we look at living in an emergency mode all the time, the emotions that are derived from those chemicals of stress are the emotions of anger, of aggression, of hatred, of prejudice, of fear, of anxiety, of insecurity, of hopelessness, of powerlessness, of depression. Those long-term effects of those chemicals are the emotions that most people call normal states of consciousness.
In the ancient world, they knew that negative emotions store all through the anatomy of the body, and it affects the emotional physiology or function of the anatomy.
Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotional response and an emotion that we fabricate by thought alone. To the body, it's believing it's in the same environmental conditions. So it's a scientific fact that the chemicals of stress dysregulate and downregulate our genes that create disease. It's a fact. So if we can turn on a stress response just by thought alone, and those chemicals can make us sick, then by very definition, our thoughts can make us sick.
They believed anciently that the emotions were actually generated by the organs in our bodies, and I believe that that's absolutely true. When we're feeling an emotion of anger, for example, that emotion is actually being created. That frequency is generated by the liver in most cases. Think about people who drink. Oftentimes, they overstimulate the liver and they become angry. On the other hand, the lungs produce the emotion of grief, among others, and so people who tend to have a lot of grief in their lives tend to suffer from lung issues.
I want you to understand why different cultures knew. If you have a pain in your thumb, that's very significant and a very significant emotion. If you have a pain in your elbow, your shoulder, if you feel a little pain in your chest, in your hips, in your stomach, in your intestines, a lot of people don't understand anymore the connection of the entire body to the brain, and the brain seeing pictures that create emotions which create behaviors.
Because emotions are a record of the past. And so if the emotion is stored in the body, then the body literally is living in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, believes it's in the same environmental conditions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body's literally living in the past.
Emotions tend to build up, and we tend to push them away as they build up because we've been taught to resist things that don't feel good instead of feel the things that don't feel good. And we look for answers, and the problem is that the answers aren't out in our world, they're inside us. because the feelings are from inside us.
When I look at the mathematics I've written and the concepts that these mathematics bring, it shows that within every proton, every subatomic particle in the nuclei of atoms is all the energy, all the information of all other atoms in the universe. So when we go inwards is when we actually connect with that oneness, with that connectivity of all things.
We've got a physical body, and we've got an energetic body. And that energetic body is known as the chakra system, and there's 7 of them. And so our beliefs, the energy of our beliefs, is stored in the light body of our chakras. And depending upon which chakra is involved, influences how we then perceive ourselves in the world around us.
And we call these trapped emotions patterns, but we do experience them that way. If it's an experience that we have not completed and come back to self, we do find a way to keep repeating those experiences. And so we re-traumatize ourselves. We pick partners that create re-traumatizing experiences that we had as a child with one of our primary caretakers or our parents or school teachers when we were very impressionable. We keep creating the same emotional dynamics, the same creative frustrations, the same physiological disabilities, and because our energy is not flowing.
Well, you know, during the last 10 years that I was in practice, I was working with some of the sickest people on the planet, people who had been told that there was no cure for them, people who were suffering from things like cancer or chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, lupus, and other diseases. What I found was that the subconscious mind absolutely holds the key to understanding the true underlying reasons why those people were sick.
Now, our subconscious mind from conception to puberty, primarily conception to 7 years of age, is programmed with emotions, memories.
From the beginning of your birth, you start encoding the world and good experiences and bad experiences, and the unconscious mind holds this and stores it and makes it real to your conscious mind later on in life. We're successfully producing whatever it is we produce. If you're depressed, you're doing something correctly inside your mind. If you have pain inside your mind, there's a resource to help create and manifest it in a belief system.
Have you ever noticed that when you have a headache, if you focus on the headache, it gets worse and it amplifies and your emotions get involved and now you're in total chaos and you think you need some kind of medical drug to kill the pain? That doesn't cure anything. That's a neurotoxin and it just blocks the electric signal. Get to the cause. What is the negative source, the toxic emotion and or the toxicity of something that you're eating and drinking that's also affecting your emotions in a negative way? Detox it, clear it. And there's no doubt that one of the leading causes of physical pain is the storing of negative emotional molecules. So it's a signal to you from the different points of anatomy that, hey, the emotions you have been feeling and going on with is storing here and it's causing a chaos or a discomfort. You need to switch it up, go to the positive form of that emotion, and it's so interesting how pain in the human body can diminish.
What I have found is that 90% of all the pain that we experience is due to trapped emotions, to emotional baggage. I think that this is really the elephant in the living room in Western medicine that we are missing completely. When people are in pain in Western medicine, we give them drugs to suppress that pain. When people have diseases, we give them medications to suppress the symptoms of those diseases, when in reality, those symptoms are the body crying out, telling us there's something wrong here. The imbalances that we suffer from are what ultimately manifest as disease. And the single biggest imbalance that we suffer from is emotional baggage, our trapped emotions, those energies that stay with us after these traumatic emotional events that we suffer from.
The stresses and upsettedness that seems to come into our life, they change. And as they change, our world changes. It's absolutely astounding that changing how you relate to something changes everything in your world.
So many of us become defined by past experiences, and we live by those emotions, but that's not who we are. Those emotions are just a record of the past, and when we begin to become aware of that, then we begin to retire the old self, neurologically, biologically, genetically, and we begin to create a whole new self.
And so what happens in today's world, because of what we have set up that we call civilized society, so many of the things that are pushed upon the masses create negative emotional molecules. Once they're formed, they're real, and you can't even get them out of the body unless you know how to. Because they're like magnesium and calcium, if you don't know how to get them out of the body, they store in anatomical sites and actually affect physiology, the function of the anatomy. And that leads to diagnostics of disease or discomfort. It's important we understand how to remove negative emotional molecules and restore them with positive emotional molecules. That's the very foundation of health, life, and longevity.
At first, when life starts, you have an egg cell and a sperm cell coming together. They become one cell. They become 2 cells, they become 4 cells, they become 8 cells, until you have like 50 trillion cells. And during the course of a lifetime, you get burns, you get cuts, you break something, you get a bacteria, you get a virus, anything. And the body restores itself, the body heals itself. So when you consider that that is a normal process, I don't think that there's a mistake in the body that actually causes disease. So if that's the case, there must be a very specific use for diseases or symptoms to occur. And I think it's the body reacting to surrounding elements, to stressors you perceive, in a way for the body to cope with the stressor and actually deal with it.
I look at every symptom as a conversation. That there's nothing that happens in the body. There is actually nothing that happens in our life by coincidence. We are not made wrong. We're not broken. We're not missing anything. That every so-called problem of the body is a portal. It's a doorway to access this invisible, unseen energy that is guiding our cells to communicate from our brain to our body, from our body to the outside world, so that we can adapt in any given moment. And so when we can begin to look at symptoms, when we can begin to look at our behaviors, whether it be addiction, whether it be, obsessive, compulsive, ritualistic ways of being, as a conversation, then we can join the dialogue. Then when we join the dialogue, that becomes the gift, because once you observe the symptom, once you observe the stress as a conversation, you can participate in it, you can guide it, you can influence it, you can learn from it, you can grow from it.
Everyone knows someone that is in pain, and everyone knows someone that is dealing with depression or anxiety or self-sabotage in some way. Many of us know someone who's dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is these emotional energies, these invisible energies, that are the underlying cause of all of these things in my experience.
So I'm really also of the belief that though trapped emotions are the source of everything that causes us difficulty in life and keeps us from being in our divine nature, I'm also a great believer that it's not that difficult to begin to move this energy once we are aware that that's what's trying to happen.